My name's Eric, I'm 29, and I guess you could say I've always been the background character in my own family. You know the type, not the black sheep exactly, more like the invisible one. The guy who remembers every birthday, sends flowers on Mother's Day, helps with moving day, lends tools, and quietly picks up the tab when Dad forgets his wallet. I'm not flashy. I'm not the loud one. I'm the dependable one. And maybe that's why it took me so long to realize I was being used. Or worse, excluded. It started small. A missed invite here, a forgotten group chat there. Oh, you didn't get the text? I thought someone told you, but I let it slide. Because that's what you do when you love people, right? You assume the best. You give the benefit of the doubt. You don't let your insecurities speak for you. But sometimes, silence is just the sound of someone trying not to cry in front of a dozen people wearing matching shirts you didn't even know existed. The baby shower was for my niece, Ellie. Well, technically she's my cousin's daughter, but we've always called each other aunt and uncle in this sprawling, tangled family tree. I showed up with a carefully wrapped gift, a hand-knitted blanket I'd commissioned from a woman at the farmer's market who did custom embroidery. Ellie's name was stitched in soft lavender script across the corner. I was proud of it. Felt like I'd finally nailed a thoughtful, personal gift. The venue was a rented garden patio behind a quaint little cafe. String lights, mason jar centerpieces, pastel streamers fluttering in the breeze. Everyone was already there when I arrived. I spotted my sister, Jen, by the drink table, talking animatedly to her cousin Rachel. I waved. Jen gave me the kind of wave you give a mailman. Brief, distant, almost performative. Still, I smiled. Kept it polite. I signed the guest book, handed over the blanket, and made small talk with the few relatives who actually remembered my name without prompting. It wasn't until halfway through the afternoon, as I helped one of the older uncles balance a paper plate of mini quiches, that I brought up the picnic. Looking forward to the family picnic next weekend, I said casually. I took the day off work. My Uncle Dave, who's always been the gruff but lovable type, let out a low chuckle. Oh, that was yesterday. I blinked. What? He tilted his head at me, as if trying to gauge whether I was joking or just clueless. Didn't anyone tell you? I just stood there. My mouth opened, then closed. I scanned the nearby faces. Some avoided eye contact. Others, like my cousin Maddie, just looked at me with pity. And then came the final gut punch. My cousin Nate, who I used to babysit when he was 6, pulled out his phone and turned it around to show me a group photo. There they all were. Matching navy blue shirts with Family Picnic 2025 in white cursive across the chest. Grinning faces, folding chairs, a massive picnic cake shaped like a watermelon slice. Everyone. Mom, Dad, Jen, even Great Aunt Louisa, who hasn't left her house in 2 years. I swallowed hard. Oh, I managed to say, forcing a chuckle that sounded as brittle as dried leaves. Then Jen walked by. She glanced at the photo and said with that smug little half-smile I've come to loathe, it was kinda a close family thing. I turned to her, stunned. I am close family. She raised an eyebrow. Sure, but you know what I mean. No, Jen. I really didn't. I excused myself a few minutes later. Pretended I had to take a call, then just walked to my car. The whole drive home, my hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly I could see the whites of my knuckles. My head buzzed with questions I'd asked myself a dozen times before but never dared say aloud. Was I just boring? Had I done something to offend someone? Did they even notice I wasn't there? But somewhere between the freeway exit and my apartment parking lot, something in me clicked. Not snapped, this wasn't rage. It was quieter than that. Cooler. Like a fog finally lifting. I realized something vital that day. It wasn't that they forgot me. It was that they deliberately chose not to include me. And worse, they didn't even feel the need to hide it anymore. I sat in the parking lot for almost an hour, staring at my phone. Scrolling through old messages, group texts, Facebook posts, calendar invites. Everything from the past few months started to make a horrifying sort of sense. The birthday dinner I'd never been told about. The group vacation they'd already booked by the time they mentioned it to me. The sudden coldness from people I used to be close with. It wasn't an accident. It was a pattern. And I was done pretending not to notice. That night, I opened my laptop and pulled out a notebook. I made a list, names, obligations, favors, the quiet ways I'd been propping up this family like an unpaid intern. Dad's car insurance? Auto-drafted from my account. Mom's streaming subscriptions? On my family plan. Jen's dog? I'd walked it every weekend for months when she was too busy. Cousin Ryan's job application? I'd rewritten his entire resume. I wasn't just forgotten. I was being used. And suddenly, I didn't feel like being useful anymore. I started with the little things. Quiet moves. Subtle. I removed a few shared accounts. Changed my Netflix password. Took myself off the family phone plan I'd been subsidizing since college. Nobody noticed. Not yet. But they would. Then came the bigger things. I pulled out the spreadsheet I'd kept of all the bills I'd paid over the years, the things I'd told myself didn't matter. And I drafted a few polite but firm emails. Not angry. Just professional. Detached. And then I made one final decision. Something personal. Something symbolic. The kind of move that would say everything I'd never said out loud. The next family event was only a week away, Ellie's christening. Formal. Church. Reception after. I was on the guest list this time, surprisingly. Probably because I still had the nicer camera and they wanted decent photos. I RSVP'd yes. Smiled. Played along. But what I had planned for that day, let's just say it ensured no one would ever forget me again. And that's where things really got interesting. The morning of Ellie's christening was bright and cloudless, the kind of spring day you only get a few times a year. The church was one of those old stone ones with stained glass windows and tall archways that made your footsteps echo. I arrived early, dressed in a sharp gray suit, the same one I'd worn to my cousin's wedding 2 years ago, the one I'd photographed for free because they couldn't afford a professional. I brought the camera, of course. Wouldn't want to break tradition. Inside, the pews were filling quickly. I saw Jen near the front, whispering something to Mom and snickering. Dad caught my eye and gave me a curt nod. No smile. No warmth. Just acknowledgement, like I was the doorman at a hotel he barely recognized. I walked past them all and took a seat near the aisle, where I'd have a clear shot for photos, because even when they excluded me, I still knew how to play the part. But this time, I wasn't there just to take pictures. The service went smoothly. Ellie cried a bit when the priest poured the water over her head, but everyone cooed and clapped as if it were the climax of a Broadway show. I snapped a few shots, more out of habit than anything else. But while everyone was focused on the altar, I kept glancing at the front row. Jen, Mom, Dad, Cousin Rachel, Aunt Marie. All laughing, whispering, elbowing one another like they were in on some shared joke. I wasn't laughing. I was memorizing. After the ceremony, everyone headed to the church hall for the reception. It was modest but well decorated. White tablecloths, flower centerpieces, a long buffet table lined with finger sandwiches, deviled eggs, and tiny cupcakes with pink frosting. The gift table was already overflowing. Someone had brought a giant plush elephant that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. I walked in with a canvas bag over my shoulder and a carefully wrapped box in my hand. I placed the box gently among the other gifts, then moved to the side of the room where the slideshow was looping, baby bump photos, gender reveal parties, maternity shoots. My sister walked by me with a plate of food and muttered just loud enough for me to hear. Try not to be awkward this time. I didn't even look at her. I just smiled and said, don't worry. I won't be invisible much longer. Her brow furrowed slightly, but she kept walking. Maybe she thought I was joking, or bitter, or just tired. But I meant every word. As everyone settled into their seats and the buffet line thinned out, the host, my cousin Rachel, stood up and clinked her glass for attention. We want to thank everyone for coming today to celebrate sweet baby Ellie, she said, beaming. We've had so much love and support, and we're just so grateful to all of you. Polite applause. Smiling faces. I stood by the edge of the room, near the light switch. My fingers were already wrapped around the small remote I had in my pocket, one I'd synced to my laptop the night before. Rachel continued, and now, we'd love to share a short video tribute to all the people who made this possible, our amazing family. Some of you might recognize a few faces. She gestured to the projector, and the slideshow faded to black. That's when my version began. At first, people didn't notice the difference. It started with a few innocent photos, family cookouts, birthdays, old reunions. But then, the captions changed. 4th of July 2023. Everyone invited, except Eric. Mom's birthday dinner. We thought you were busy. Family picnic 2025. Didn't anyone tell you? Each slide was time-stamped, dated, labeled. I'd pulled the screenshots from Facebook, texts, even that stupid family WhatsApp group I'd been removed from without explanation. The room began to shift. You could feel it. People craning their necks, whispering, glancing nervously toward Jen and Mom and Dad. Then came the real kicker, a slide that simply read, a running tab, followed by a spreadsheet. Itemized. Every expense, every favor, every small thing I'd paid for or contributed over the years, from Christmas dinners to loan repayments I never asked to be returned. Each row ended with a short note. Never reimbursed. Never thanked. By the time the total flashed on screen, the room was dead silent. $11,700. I let it hang there. No music, no voiceover, just cold numbers and a room full of people choking on awkwardness. The final slide was a photo of me, smiling, holding a birthday cake, alone. The caption read, "Don't worry, I brought my own party." Then the screen faded to black. I stepped forward, the remote still in my hand. My voice was calm, too calm, maybe. "Thank you for watching. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't forgotten this time." You could have heard a pin drop. Mom stood up, her face pale. "Eric, what was that?" I looked right at her. That was the truth. Dad opened his mouth, then closed it. Jen just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I turned to Rachel and handed her a USB. "That has all the original photos and files. Feel free to delete them. Or keep them. Up to you." Then I picked up my canvas bag and started walking toward the door. People were whispering again. Except this time, it wasn't about how I was always late or too quiet. It was about what they'd just seen, about what they'd ignored, about what they'd allowed. Jen followed me out, her heels clicking angrily on the tile. "That was messed up, Eric. You humiliated the whole family." I stopped just outside the door and turned to her. "No, Jen." I reminded the family. "There's a difference." She crossed her arms. "What are you even trying to prove?" I took a breath. The kind you take before closing a door you know won't reopen. That I was here. That I mattered. That I'm done being the guy everyone remembers after the party's over. And then I left. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because what happened next? What happened after that video? That was when the real fallout began. When the call started. When the story started unraveling. When secrets got dragged out of the dark. And that's where things went from awkward to explosive. I didn't go home right away. I drove around the city with the windows down, letting the spring air hit my face, letting it cool the quiet storm inside me. I wasn't angry, not in the way I used to be. Not the simmering kind of resentment that ate away at me in silence. No, what I felt now was something clearer, sharper, a strange kind of peace that only comes after a long overdue confrontation. I'd finally said it, without shouting, without begging, without hoping someone would understand. I'd laid it all out and walked away, on my terms. But peace has a way of shaking people who thrive on control. By the time I got back to my apartment, I had 9 missed calls. 2 from Mom, 1 from Dad, 4 from Jen, 1 from Rachel, 1 unknown number that I was pretty sure was Aunt Marie trying to disguise her call. I let them go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to hear excuses or tears or guilt trips. Not yet. Then the group chat was reborn. Yes, the same family group chat I'd been silently removed from 6 months earlier. Apparently, someone decided now would be the perfect time to re-add me. The notification popped up while I was making tea. "You've been added to family." The first message came from Jen. Okay, well, that slideshow was completely out of line. This was a baby's christening, not your therapy session. Then Mom chimed in. "Eric, honey, that was extremely hurtful. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Couldn't you have just spoken to us privately?" "Rachel, I get that you're upset, but airing all that at a baby shower? Not cool." And then came Dad. "Grow up." That was it. Just those 2 words. Grow up. No explanation. No apology. Just the man who let me cover his car repairs without a thank you telling me I needed to mature. For a moment, I stared at my phone. I was almost tempted to reply. To write a long, carefully worded essay breaking down every year of silent resentment, every moment of being passed over, every favor and smile I'd given freely, only to be dismissed like a seat filler at their lives. But then I realized no amount of words would matter. They'd already decided who I was. Quiet Eric. Helpful Eric. The guy who never says no. The guy they only noticed when they needed something or when he dared to speak up. So I didn't respond. I left the group. That's when the text messages started rolling in, each more frantic than the last. Jen tried again. "You made your point. Can you stop now? You're making it worse." Mom's came next. "You've always been dramatic, but this is too much. We were just trying to protect you from feeling out of place." "Protect me? From my own family?" And then Rachel, in her usual soft approach, maybe you could come over for dinner and we can talk? Just us. I ignored them all. I didn't want a half-hearted sit-down dinner where someone microwaved store-brand lasagna and pretended like it could soak up decades of neglect. I didn't want the weak smiles or the defensive jokes or the quick pivots to "can't we just move on?" Because I wasn't moving on. Not yet. 3 days later, the real shift happened. It began with a call from my old coworker, Sam. "Dude," he said, "why is your sister asking about your job?" "What?" She DM'd me on LinkedIn. Said she was concerned you were acting out and wanted to know if everything was okay at work. She asked if your mental health had been affecting your projects lately. I froze. "She what?" Sam sighed. I didn't say anything. But, man, that's cold. Jen had never even visited my office. Never asked about my job unless she needed help making her resume look good. But now she was reaching out to my coworkers, trying to spin the narrative before I had the chance. That same night, I checked Facebook. The family was in damage control mode. Rachel had posted a long, heartfelt caption with a photo from the christening conveniently cropped to exclude the slideshow incident. Family is everything. We may not be perfect, but we show up. And sometimes, people lash out when they feel left out. Let's all remember to love each other through the hard times. The comment section was a minefield of passive-aggressive pity. "Praying for your strength, Rachel. Some people just need attention. You're the bigger person. Keep being you." I didn't comment. I didn't even like it. But I screenshotted every last word. You see, what my family had never realized was that being quiet doesn't mean being clueless. That just because I wasn't the loudest voice in the room didn't mean I wasn't paying attention. Watching. Listening. Remembering. So while they scrambled to rewrite the story, to paint me as unstable or bitter or selfish, I started preparing the next step. Not revenge for revenge's sake, but clarity. A kind of quiet justice. I started collecting receipts. Not just emotional ones, real ones. Bank statements. Venmo transactions. Email threads. Text messages. Every favor. Every cent. Every moment where I'd stepped up and been treated like a doormat in return. And then something unexpected happened. Ellie's mother, Rachel's sister, Sophie, called me. We hadn't talked in months. Maybe a year. But she sounded different. Hesitant. Like someone who'd seen a building catch fire and wasn't sure if she should scream or grab a bucket. "Eric," she said softly, "I just wanted to say I saw what happened. And I'm sorry." I blinked. "You are." I wasn't part of that picnic. I wasn't invited either. Jen said it was just a small thing. But when I saw that slideshow, I realized how long you've been dealing with this. I didn't know what to say. It was the first time anyone, had actually acknowledged it out loud. "There are more people than you think," she continued, "who've been pushed out. Forgotten. You're not the only one." That stuck with me. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about me. It wasn't just one ignored birthday or one family photo I wasn't in. It was a pattern. A family culture. One that picked favorites and discarded the rest like leftovers in the back of the fridge. I'd simply been the one to finally say something. And now? Now people were watching. I started getting messages from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. An old uncle who lived 2 states away. Even my godmother, who said she hadn't come to family gatherings in years because of the way they treated people like you. Every message strengthened my resolve. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I was the mirror they'd spent years avoiding, and now that I'd held it up, they were scrambling to shatter it. And that's when I knew I hadn't gone far enough. What came next? That was the part that truly made sure no one ever forgot me again. But if you want to hear what I did next, and how the family's image of perfection completely imploded, just let me know. Because that is where the real fireworks started. I took a full week to disappear. Not from the world, just from them. I stopped responding to messages, muted the family members still blowing up my phone, and let the dust settle while they tore each other apart trying to assign blame. Jen tried calling me 6 more times. Mom left 2 long voicemails full of fake concern, thinly disguised as emotional blackmail. This family has been through so much, Eric. Don't throw it away over a misunderstanding. My favorite was Dad's blunt message. "You embarrassed your mother. Fix it." I didn't fix anything. I went quiet because I was working, planning. Not a tantrum, not an outburst, but a full, calm, calculated reckoning. You see, I knew my family well enough to predict exactly how they'd behave. They'd try to discredit me, smear me quietly behind the scenes, patch up their image publicly while calling me unstable in private. But I had something they never expected: documentation. Remember that spreadsheet from the slideshow? That was just the tip of the iceberg. I pulled every receipt, every email I'd sent to help Rachel's husband land his first job after his DUI. Every time I transferred money to help mom with unexpected bills. The years of payments for dad's car insurance. The time I bailed Jen out of a credit card hole so deep she had 3 collectors calling her in 1 week. They never even said thank you. Not once. I compiled it all into a neat, clean, factual document. No insults. No accusations. Just truth. A timeline. A pattern. And for each line, I added a short quote or message they'd sent at the time. Messages that showed the imbalance. Eric, can you just do this one thing? You're always so helpful. Nobody else has the time. At the end of the document, I wrote only this: I did all of this not because I had to, but because I thought I was part of a family. I see now that I was just a resource. I'm no longer available for that role. Consider this my resignation letter from the unpaid position of family doormat. Then I uploaded it to a shared Google Drive, and I sent it to everyone. Not just the core family group. I sent it to the extended family too. The cousins, the aunts, the uncles, even the ones who hadn't spoken to me in years. Especially them. I included a simple email header, in case anyone's curious why I won't be at the next close family gathering. That was it. The response was swift. It started small. A few texts from extended cousins I barely remembered. Messages like, "Damn, I had no idea," or "This explains so much." One even said, "You just wrote what half the family's been thinking for years." Then came the fallout. Mom called again, this time angry. Furious, even. "How dare you air our private affairs to everyone? That was family business." I calmly replied, "Exactly. And for the first time, the whole family's in on it." She hung up. Jen exploded in the group chat, calling me manipulative, vindictive, and obsessed with playing the victim. But her tantrum only made things worse for her, because people started chiming in. Sophie reminded everyone that Jen had deliberately excluded her from events too. My cousin Leo posted screenshots of Jen mocking another relative in a private chat. Aunt Marie, bless her, said what everyone else was thinking. This might have been uncomfortable, but it needed to be said. Dad didn't respond at all. He went silent. That's how I knew it had landed. He only shuts up when he knows he's cornered. What really tipped the scales, though, was when Rachel's husband, remember, the guy I helped land his job, replied to the email with a single sentence: "You're not wrong, Eric. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner." That cracked the dam. People started opening up, sharing their own stories of being snubbed, dismissed, used. It was like the family's perfect little facade had been pierced, and everyone could finally breathe. Within days, the family's carefully curated image began to crumble. The matching shirt picnics, the all smiles photo dumps, the fake unity. It was all smoke and mirrors, and now the smoke was clearing. And as for me, I didn't return to the family functions. I didn't respond to the passive-aggressive invitations or the olive branch texts meant to make them feel better without ever apologizing. I stayed out, and it was peaceful. I took up hiking again, reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with while juggling family obligations. I even started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I finally had space to unpack everything I'd shoved down for decades. A few months later, something happened that might have shattered me in the past. Mom ended up in the hospital for a minor surgery. Nothing life-threatening. But Jen called me, clearly expecting me to drop everything and rush over. "You're still her son, Eric." I paused before answering. "No," I said. "I was a son to people who treated me like one. I don't know who you and Mom decided I was, but I'm not that anymore." Then I blocked her. A week later, Rachel emailed me, not to guilt trip, but to genuinely apologize. She said she didn't realize how bad things had gotten, and she was sorry for being complicit. I didn't fully forgive her, but I appreciated the honesty. I told her so. We didn't pretend everything was fine. That was the first real adult conversation I'd had with a family member in years. And the best part? Ellie, little baby Ellie, grew up never knowing me as the family ghost. I sent her a birthday gift anyway. Not out of guilt, not to buy my way in, but because I still believed in doing things for the right reasons. Just not for the wrong people. Eventually, the calls stopped. The messages stopped. The invitations stopped. And I smiled every time one didn't come. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't an afterthought. I wasn't a helper. A ghost. A wallet. A +1. I was Eric, the guy who stopped apologizing for taking up space. And trust me, they never forgot me again. They couldn't.